Hello, everybody. What's happening? What's going on? This your girl Tiffany, and I'm here live in effect. And today I want to talk about something that has came up as a trending topic, but something that should be often discussed, especially within our community, but don't get enough conversation. So here's a story about a young lady named Piper Lewis from Iowa. Piper Lewis was a 15-year-old girl that was allegedly raped, and she killed her rapist, her alleged rapist. And now the court is telling her that she owed restitution to the family. So before I go there, make sure you guys subscribe and like the channel, share the channel, and all that great stuff. So thank you guys that's been supporting my channel. I want to say that. But let's get into the story, because the question becomes, what can we learn from the Piper Lewis story? What can we learn from this? Now, according to according to the article from NPR.org, okay, this report came out September 14, 2022. It says an Iowa teenager who killed her accused rapist is sentenced in order to pay 150K. A teenage human trafficking victim who was initially charged with first-degree murder after she stabbed her accused rapist to death was sentenced Tuesday in an Iowa court to 5 years of closely supervised probation in order to pay $150,000 restitution to the man's family. So Piper Lewis, 17, was sentenced Tuesday after she pleaded last year to involuntary manslaughter and willful injury in the June of 2020 killing of 37-year-old Zachary Brooks of Des Moines. Both charges were punishable by up to 10 years in prison. Polk County District Judge David M. Porter on Tuesday deferred those prison sentences, meaning that if Lewis violated any portion of her probation, she could be sent to prison to serve that 20-year term. As for being required to pay the estate of her rapist, this court is presented with no other option, Porter said, noting the restitution is mandatory under Iowa law that has been upheld by Iowa Supreme Court. Lewis was 15 when she stabbed Brooks more than 30 times in Des Moines' apartment. Officials have said Lewis was a runaway who was seeking to escape an abusive life with her adoptive mother and was sleeping in the hallways of a Des Moines apartment building when a 28-year-old man took her in before forcefully trafficking her to other men for sex. Lewis said one of those men was Brooks and that he had raped her multiple times in the weeks before his death. She recounted being forced at knife point by the 28-year-old man to go with Brooks to his apartment for sex. She told officials that after Brooks had raped her yet again, she grabbed a knife from a bedside table and stabbed Brooks in a fit of rage. Police and prosecutors have not disputed that Lewis was sexually assaulted and trafficked, but prosecutors have argued that Brooks was asleep at the time when he was stabbed and not in immediate danger to Lewis. Iowa is not amongst the dozen of states that have a so-called safe harbor law that gives trafficking victims at least some level of criminal immunity. Lewis, who earned her GED while being held in juvenile detention, acknowledged in a statement prior to her sentencing that she struggled with the structure of her detention, including why I was treated like a fragile glass or wasn't allowed to communicate with her friends or family. My spirit has been burned, but still glows through the flames, she said. She read from a statement she had prepared. Hear me roar, see me glow, and watch me grow. I am a survivor, she added. All right, so I'm just going to stop right there. Then I'm going to go back and read the article. So here's a case of a young teenage girl who ran away from home because she was in an abusive household, trying to look for somewhere to stay. and she ran into the arms of somebody, a total stranger, thinking that she gonna be safe. But this man basically prostituted her into having sex with older men. And one of those older men had the guy that she stabbed multiple times because he was raping on her. Now, does this story sound very familiar? Let's talk about the story of Crystal Pfizer. Excuse me, Crystal Kaiser. Crystal Kaiser was a young lady from Milwaukee who went through the same situation. Of course, they locked her up. She was a sex trafficking victim, and she had a man that raped her. But here's the twist to that story. They knew this guy was a rapist. This guy had records. Okay, he had felonies. He was known for sexual assault. And they let this man out of prison, and he take advantage of another young lady. Another young black girl. And now she was dealt with the possibility of life. Let's not forget Santoya Brown. Santoya Brown was another young lady who got locked up because of the same situation. Now, as a young black girl coming up, when you have lack of father figure in the household, or you don't have any type of male figure who you look up to, and your mother is very abusive, who do you turn to? See, a young man, if he was growing up in the streets, 9 times out of 10, he could find him a father figure. But a girl, if she get caught up in the street life, she not going to really find a father figure. She going to find a man that's going to want to have sex with her and want to sell her to the streets. And see, we don't understand what a lot of these young girls be going through. You want to know why they have such an attitude and feel the way they do about society. Malcolm was correct when he said that the most unprotected person is the black woman. The most disrespected is a black woman. You can get mad, but that's Malcolm's statement, and he was correct. Black women are less likely to become protected in society. That's one of the reasons why black women say, you know what, I'd rather be so-called independent. I'd rather do my own thing. Because they don't feel the love that they supposed to be getting from their family, their relatives. And even the ones that claim to protect them and claim to care about them is the one that turn around and abuse them. Now here's this young girl looking for a shelter, looking for a place to live because she has nowhere to go. Y'all might say, well, she should never ran away from home. But what would you do if you was in an abusive environment? Would you put up with the abuse? Or would you run away? What would you have done if you was placed in an abusive situation? Most young girls don't have their voices heard very often. They're not allowed to really have a voice. They're not really allowed to speak. When it comes to the issue dealing with black women, especially young black teenage girls, those issues overlooked at. Those issues are not focused on. Then you want to know why some sisters say, well, what about the issue of black women? And that's the case. That's true. What about the issue of black women? Why can't you not focus on the issue altogether if you're going to talk about the black community? There shouldn't be no form of marginalization taking place. These are the conversations that should be brought up every single time. This is something that you should have a conversation with your kids about when it comes to sex trafficking, all of that. Because sex trafficking is a real thing. It's real. And they don't care what age your child may be. And the people that's more than likely to become a victim of it are those who are Hispanic and African American. The Hispanic and black people are more than likely to become victim of sex trafficking. And if you don't think this is an issue, then you part of the problem. If you don't think this is something you should have a conversation with your children about, then you're a part of the problem. You failed your kids. You failed to protect as a parent. You failed to protect as a community person. And it's painful that the courts tell this young lady that she got to pay $150,000 restitution to the family for this man who had allegedly raped her. It's very sickening and it's sad. She shouldn't even have to pay that much. That money should go to her. Because after all, she was a victim. That money should go into her pocket so where she can be able to finish up her education, get her somewhere to stay, and be able to go to college if she needs to, if she want to go to college. Where's the protection act for kids like this young lady here? Why are they not being protected? It seems like our community just don't. I don't want to say they don't care, but it's just certain people just overlook the situation. If it ain't my child, then I ain't got to worry about it, and that's just the wrong attitude to have. You want to know why none of these kids want to talk about what they go through and why they just bottle it up and keep it to themselves. Then when these young girls grow up to become women, they have attitudes against men. They become bitter because nobody was there to really protect them. Nobody really there to care about them. The people they really trust the most. So now imagine she gonna have to go through therapy, and she's gonna be, and she's gonna be broken for the rest of her life. She's gonna be very broken behind this. She's going to be hurt, and she's going to have a hard time wanting to maintain a relationship because of what she had to endure and what she had to go through. But let me go ahead and continue on with this article. It says the Associated Press does not typically name victims of sexual assault, but Lewis agreed to have her name used previously in stories about her case. Prosecutor took issue with Lewis calling herself a victim in the case and said she failed to take responsibility for stabbing Brooks and leaving his kids without a father. Well, let me say something about that. The father put himself in that situation. What was he doing? His priority wasn't his children. Obviously, his priority was to violate this young girl. So he wasn't thinking about taking care of his family. He wasn't thinking about taking care of his children. So let's just get that part straight. But let's continue on. The judge peppered Lewis with repeated requests to explain what poor choices she made that led up to Brooks stabbing and expressed concern that she sometimes did not want to follow rules set for her in juvenile lockup. The next 5 years of your life will be full of rules you disagree with, I'm sure of it, Porter said. He later added, this is the second chance that you asked for. You don't get a third. Carl Skilling with the Iowa Organization for Victim Assistance said a bill to create safe harbor law for trafficking victims passed the Iowa House earlier this year, but stalled in the Senate under concern from law enforcement groups that it was too broad. There was a working group established to iron out the issues, Schilling said. Hopefully it will be taken up again next year. Iowa does have a affirmative defense law that gives some leeway to victims of crime if the victim committed the violation under compulsion by another threat of serious injury, provided that the defendant reasonably believed that such injury was imminent. Prosecutors argued Tuesday that Lewis waived that affirmative defense when she pleaded guilty to manslaughter and willful injury. And that's all from this article. Okay, this is from NPR.org. And you know, it's just very interesting. There's no law to protect people who were sex trafficking victims, right? To make sure that they can be able to live a peaceful life. But you can protect those who were alleged, I wouldn't even say alleged rapists, but those who are rapists, those who have history of sexually violating people. You can protect those individuals. You can make sure that those individuals be in a secure environment. They can live in a neighborhood where nobody can touch them. But when it comes to these young people, when it comes to people, especially those who are victim of such heinous crimes such as rape, they don't receive any type of protection. They don't receive any type of help. They don't get anything, but they get jail time and they got to pay restitution. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. So does the United States really care about every citizen in their country? No. And this is why people want to know, well, why folks don't stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Why should I pledge allegiance to a flag for what? Give me a reason why I should give honor and credence to a flag. Why should I give honor when we are not united as a people? We're not united. We're very divisive. We're not protected under law like we should be. We don't receive that type of protection in our community. We don't. So I feel like no black person should be standing up saying no pledge of allegiance of nothing. We should not give no pledge of allegiance. And if we gonna vote for somebody, we need to make sure that those people that we vote for is going to put their focus on sex trafficking as well. Housing, education, inadequate health care, the focus on homelessness, sex trafficking, and also reparation. If these politicians cannot put their focus on neither one of these that I mentioned, then they should not get our vote. They do not deserve our vote, period. If you cannot put your focus on sex trafficking victims, housing, education, inadequate health care, homelessness, then you don't deserve the vote. If you can't talk about reparation, meaning not reparation just in money wise, but reparation making sure that we get the resources as African American people who are descendant of those Africans that was enslaved here in America. If we can't get some type of resources for us or some type of benefits, then we should not be voting for anybody if they don't represent us properly. It don't matter if they Democrat or Republican, and that's just my argument. What's good? What good is it to have a politician that's not going to live up to the standard of the people? What's good to have a politician that's not going to live up to the standards of the people? You know what? Let me just go ahead and play this video. Here's a young lady, Pieper Lewis. Now, this is her speaking at the trial.
My voice would be heard. The story of Pieper Lewis holds power. The trauma of Pieper Lewis carries a ruptured beginning, tormented past, and a delayed future. With perseverance, we have the ability to change the direction of our delayed and unknown futures. Living with the knowledge of this has been a challenge. It can conquer thoughts, feelings, and spiritual practices. the power of patience and forgiveness provided to me by others as well as myself. I prevailed. I am resilient. My story can change things. My story has changed me. The events that took place on that horrific day cannot be changed, as much as I wish they could. That day, a combination of complicated actions took place, resulting in the death of a person as well as stolen innocence of a child. Remorse forms itself in front of me as I grow and evolve as a young woman. I feel for the victim's family. I wish what happened never did, and I truly feel that way. The healing process is inevitable. I repeat, I wish the events that took place on June 1st, 2020 never occurred. But to say there's only one victim to this story is absurd. My future is unknown. The mental game of tug of war I compete with daily is painful. So today, September 1st, I have written this with an extreme wave of relief. 27 months of the waiting game will be over. My anxiety, as well as poor decision making, played a role into me wanting to self-sabotage just a few weeks ago and make negative and impulsive decisions. Feeling my world on my shoulders, just wanting one answer. Needing to hear it so I can continue to progress and evolve as a person. I felt stuck. I feel I have taken advantage of all things a child aged 15 through 17 can within the walls of Polk County Juvenile Detention Center. I battled challenges with the strength of my own resilience. I wasn't alone no matter how many times I felt lost, detached, and isolated. I had an amazing therapist, Megan, to help guide me in finding my voice. She heard me. Walking through the fire, a phoenix like me carries on its back as it rises from the ashes. This means I faced rape, abuse, hatred, betrayal, manipulation, abandonment, loss of a parent, loneliness, and self-revelation. The list goes on and on. I wonder what else I will carry in that sack of beautiful pain. I often ask myself why I hurt. The answer is clear. Hurt people, whether it's intentional or not. My actions cause pain and hurt upon others. Others' actions cause pain and hurt upon me. I am very young now that I realize it. I feel that I need to prove myself. I need to act grown. I need to be perfect with a mindset of consistent persistence. I know that I am being watched by a million eyes. Reality is I will make mistakes, even with the court's pressure, and the thought of one mistake I will make determine my entire future. I refuse to fail. I refuse to let the system fail me. Some days I feel like giving up, but yet again, I am the light at the end of the tunnel. I flicker brighter than the simple thought of my own future. I must prevail. I own the power to take accountability. The ones that hold me accountable deserve a reason, an explanation, not excuses which are often confused. In these steps to reasonable ownership, I felt I have taken.
And I'm just gonna stop right there because that was just pretty heavy. That was a heavy video to watch. And just to listen to that poor young lady, you can tell she has some form of anxiety. She's very traumatized. And just to put her on the spot, the judges and prosecutor ought to be ashamed of themselves, but at the same time, they don't give a fuck. They just looking to prosecute and put whoever they can in prison. This hurts me. It just hurt me to listen to this young lady give her testimony, reading, and telling people her reason and why. And now she afraid that if she make one mistake that it's gonna cost her everything. This is a story of being a black girl in America. This is what it means to be black in America. This is exactly what it means. You don't get that many chances. So hopefully one day her story can be heard and she can be an example to other young women out there that has gone through what she been through, and maybe she can help empower and uplift them. Hopefully, maybe she can be a voice to them. But anyways, you guys, that's all I wanted to talk about. And again, this type of stuff needs to be brought up into the conversation. There needs to be more awareness about sex trafficking, and there needs to be more people doing something about this, especially politicians. Like, they should make this one the focus point of the political agenda. If they not making this as a focus point, then you can forget about people earning your votes. And that's just how I feel. All right then, ladies and gentlemen. So until next time, y'all take it easy. And peace and power and elevation be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany. Be safe. All right, thank you.